The last question is, what would your selected civil rights icon tell people of color today about reaching the mountaintop of equity, inclusion, and healing? All right. So what would you, so basically, what's the advice? Like, what would if it's your granddaddy, your grandpappy, what how would he tell you? All right, Inkiru.
To be honest, I think, as we mentioned earlier, both of them, towards the end of their lives, their views kind of merged. Like they started to kind of see or reason with each other and have shared some similarities with what they were thinking and the approach that they wanted to go in. So I would say for both, they would want us to work with others, especially people who are our allies who would want to support us, but at the same time, work amongst ourselves to build things or to build communities, build, the economics and everything else that we discussed earlier. They want us to work on creating those things and making them very strong for ourselves, and not relying so much on external factors, but relying on ourselves to build the necessary futures that we want to have.
Um, for me, I think largely along the lines that you said. I think that they would just the advice. Well, I mean, I selected MLK. I think MLK would basically say, that we shouldn't definitely give up. That we should be, we should persevere, and we should organize. I think that we definitely have to start looking at ourselves not in the monolith and start understanding each other as different peoples, get our cultural understanding of who we are, because right now we're people of color from Latin America, we're people of color from Africa, we're people of color from African American, we're people of color from all over Caribbean, and Asia. It goes on and on, and these are all the people in your neighborhood, in your neighborhood, and I think that that's what we would have to, and poor whites, and it goes on and on. And I think that that's kind of what we have to really focus on, is like, what can we do um, to lift all the boats? Because I don't think that in this climate, with all this negativity towards reduction of voting rights, if we don't take a stand, if we don't try to ensure that our people know, like that's why that last video has a lot of information about going to vote. What do you do? Go and tell your family, things like that. And I think those are the kind of things we have to force a, and I know that sounds kind of, by any means necessary. We have, by any peaceful means necessary. Let me join two of them together. By any peaceful means necessary, I think that we definitely need to make sure our people know what's at stake, because it is our lives that are going down. Now, I don't know if you know this, but Back Bay is a part of Boston. It's kind of like downtown. It's the more affluent area, and Roxbury is a red line area where people of color, African Americans primarily, have been kept, and that's the right word, unfortunately, for decades, and nothing has been done to repair that situation. Now you say, okay, well, okay, that doesn't matter. It does matter, and why does it matter? Because these same places have a 30-year life expectancy difference. If you live in Back Bay, not more than 3 or 4 miles away from Roxbury, you will live to almost 90 years old or 90 years old. If you live in Roxbury, you will be your life expectancy is 60, 59, or something like that. It's literally 30 years, 31 years of difference. And that's because of all the different things, everything added on top of each other. The complexity of problem after problem. If it's not discrimination, if it's not trying to get out of poverty, it's discriminatory practices, it's businesses in our community taking up all the market share. The economic issue is that these market shares is a scientific fact. There's only a certain amount of money in Hyde Park or in Boston. And that money, if the infrastructure exists, meaning businesses that are owned by other people in our community, that is another headwind that we have to fight against in order to have this economic stability, right? You can't just open up a restaurant and be successful. if there's no money because everybody's going to the restaurant they've been going to for 50 years. So anyway, I think, like I said, I think just to close it all up, I think that, and I think also, and one last thing, I also want to point out that these two men are very similar. In fact, I agree with the whole thing. I set it up in a way to get to a solution, and that solution is that they're very much the same. And that being the same, let's look at one thing. A man that is considered non-violent actually had more violence at his activities than the man that's considered violent. Because, like I said, he would set up situations in which he knew they would be subject to violence, and they used that violence and the pictures of that violence to change the course of American history, right? But towards the end, people don't understand. Martin Luther King actually hardened. He got disillusioned because he realized that, and he said it in one of his speeches, that the 1964 and 1965 Act, they didn't cost anything anybody. They were just ideas. Now, once you got into costing, that's when white America had to pay money and make sacrifices for people of color. That's when he met his greatest resistance, and he grew hardened. He was more close to Malcolm X at the end. And simultaneously, Malcolm X at the end, after going to Mecca and seeing things from a world view, from a wider world view, right? We have to understand African Americans, especially in the North, where, we are people of, that are living in poverty without our cultural base of the South. And there was a lot of issues going on there with second-class citizenry and the mindset. Malcolm X broke out of that and went to Mecca, saw people of different races worshiping his religion, and he realized that even though it's eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth in Islam, that it was something to do particularly with America, not having to do with race. It was a culture. So anyway, I know I probably went a little bit over, but I just wanted to get my last closing statements in. And now, Tonya.
So I believe that both of these icons, if they were here today, especially based on their last speeches and where they came to in their evolution, I believe that they would want for there to be one large movement instead of several movements, because they realize that in order for us to have the real revolution that we need to all come together. Dr. Martin said it in his sermon about like Paul's letter to the church, and how, in God's eyes, there isn't a such thing as a Baptist, as a Catholic, as a Presbyterian. Brother Malcolm said it, like, we're not oppressed because we're Muslim, because we're Christian, because we're Catholic. We're oppressed because we're Black. So I believe that they will want to get rid of the separate movements and have one movement, and so that we can come together as a unit in order to, because like you said, by 2045, 2055, will be the majority. But it's not going to matter if 10 of us are over here, 30 of us are over there. Like, if we don't come together, it doesn't matter if we're the majority. So I think that's where they would be, because towards the end, that's what they were doing. They were coming together.
Right.
Dr. King's last birthday that he celebrated, he had a meeting with the Poor People's Campaign, where there were Hispanic people, white people, Asian people, Black. Everyone who was poor and that was a leader in that community was there, and that was a problem.
My sister, you really said it right, and that's exactly it. That the fact that he was going to help everybody, and I really think that was why he was assassinated. Because you're stepping beyond your bounds, is the way I look at it. That he was actually helping real poor people, and so thank you so much for your comments.
Well, I thought about your one of your favorite people, John Lewis, and talked about is it good trouble that he talked about?
Right.
Necessary
trouble.
Necessary. There would definitely have to be some necessary trouble. We would definitely have to, I believe, focus on healing ourselves. I talked about being involved in a book club a while back about my grandmother's hands. That was the book, and talking about healing this trauma so that we can work together. As the young lady before me said, if part of us are here and there, and then there's a gentleman after me. Is it Stefan?
Yep.
Right. And in the last segment, he brought up something that was really important too, and it's just like there's going to have to be cohesiveness, even though we're not all doing the same thing. This finger can't do the same thing as my toe, and so there's going to be genuine gifts and abilities that each of us have to bring together. And again, I'm going to go back to talking about the distractions. The distractions are keeping us from seeing how much we are alike and how much we need each other, and that we're not separate. And I also was just thinking about the analogy that I heard not too long ago, probably over the summer, about the contract, where if we work hard and do the right things, we'll be rewarded, the pursuit of happiness. But the contract kept getting broken and amended and switched, and never to our benefit. And that's a reality. So at some point, folks are going to have to honor the contract.
Right.
Because then you're going to have some necessary trouble.
Uh-oh.
I'm just saying.
Good shame. I love it.